What's up, guys? You guys had a good weekend? Going to okay. Let's go to 4 hour. So today's what do we call this? The Sunday forecasting call is likely to be very similar to last week's. Still expecting this this low to essentially be weak, and yeah, basically try to sweep down into here, and then looking for something to then take this into the higher levels up here. So we'll go over that in some more detail again, and leave some time at the end for some Q&A. Actually, just going to go Euro USD, and we're going to go on a different chart. Not that one. Do FXCM. Hey, Dave, you made it, man. What's going on? Okay, let's get started. 8 people. Maybe I'll put a little note. All right, let's do this. So, what's up, Afonso? Happy Sunday. Cool. So let's start with our weekly chart. I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious what looks like it's it's pretty obvious what we can think what's going to happen here. Well, words are good. I'm basically looking somewhere in here, I believe, on the daily, if I'm not mistaken. Let's just go out to our daily. Okay, remove drawings. There we go. So this will be a little bit more apparent on the 4 hour, but basically somewhere in here, right? We were basically looking at, so demand, 240 demand. And what we'll do is go to the 4. Everybody understands how I'm selecting this POI. Obviously, this is kind of like that last little push. We're not expecting it to break highs or anything like that, but we are expecting, or at least I am expecting, I don't know about any of you guys, but I am definitely expecting some form of a pullback. Now, could obviously smoke right through it. Tons of liquidity below the low. But yeah, expecting to see some form of a pullback, whether it be here, whether it be underneath here. But yeah, I am expecting to see something that would be tradable on the M15 Pro Trend model once we hit here. So let's go down onto our forum. Yeah, so you can kind of see the little refinement that we could do here. I'm sure we could probably refine down to this wick, but this is like the last sort of down move that pushes and then brings us into some form of a structure break. So yeah, that's basically what I'm looking at for this week to come. And I basically had the same narrative last week. I thought that this was actually going to dive a lot quicker. Turns out we just wanted to grab something above these highs first, and it looks like reasonably we should be able to see this first. There's a lot of people that are likely going to see this as some form of a strong low, but you can just see, like we've just to say wicked above. We don't actually have a structure break. We get a V-shaped recovery, order flow shift, we capitalized on the sells right here. I held my sells over the weekend. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I closed one of my 2 positions, and the other one I'm just going to let run into expectational order flow lows, right? So be mindful of, what needs to happen sort of down in these regions. We need to ideally see some form of, inducement, sweep down, and then get, our criteria. And just remember, we don't need to catch the bottom of this either. It is so much easier to just let trend essentially just align for us, right? Like you don't have, like, even if we get the first move that runs 80 pips, 90 pips, and you don't feel super confident in jumping in right away, like don't stress out about that. Just allow the market to establish what it wants to do. Get yourself that double confirmation. If it means waiting and sitting on your hands until Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, don't take a single trade all week, and you just want to take little continuations till we get down there and then just cut it off until we actually see this thing do what we need it to do, then so be it. You know what I mean? Like, don't force out trades just for the sake of being bored watching your computer and feeling like you need to trade. And I know that I know a lot of you guys are probably getting close to looking to get funded or starting a challenge. And if that's the case, just remember, like, yes, you do have 30 days in phase 1. But I'll tell you right now, if you just wait for your setups, and I kind of talked about this late last week, bottom line is go back and look at the pro trend moves. How many happened within a month, right? We had, like, I believe it was like 250R. If we just followed like the plan strictly from the actual structure points, I think there was like 250R to be made within a month. And it's always like this. You just gotta be patient, let the setups kind of happen and trust that process. And the best way to trust the process is just go back in time and have a look, right? Go measure out a month and just make sure that there's moves within a month's time span that you can capitalize on. So yeah, I mean, these are pretty simple calls now. Like we're not going to be running these super long anymore because, quite frankly, I think everybody can see what the higher time frame is looking like. It basically wants to come into these lows, probably grab liquidity from them. If and when that happens, then obviously once we see higher time frame order flow shift, we can start to actually take really, really big counter trend moves into potentially this larger supply zone above here, right? Everybody with me? Simple. Keep it, you know what I mean? Like there's no reason to overcomplicate things. I find where things get really, really overcomplicated is in more of like the intraday perspective. How can we capitalize on every single day? And like I said, it very much used to be a style that I really enjoyed trading. But the problem with it is it becomes very, very toxic, and you kind of forget what the higher time frame is trying to tell you, what it's trying to do. And yeah, I would say that, the best option is always going to be just zooming out, looking at where the bigger play for the week is going to sort of, form from. And I would say that honestly, the big play that we could expect this week should come from here. And I think it's, we we might get another push. We could very well see this as potentially as a as a strong low. But personally, I do have a suspicion that we should be able to see these lows kind of taken. Now, we want to talk about the scenario. I don't want to, completely, ignore that this low could potentially be strong. So in the case that we basically do something like this, okay, and we'll jump down onto like a 15-minute chart. If you look at the delivery right now on price, what does it look like is going to happen, right? Should be pretty clear. We should be running these lows, right? We've got a bunch of built up mitigations. We're coming into premium of the leg. There might be a nice move that you could potentially take into here. Just take it into the soft low, because you have to remember, we don't control the market. As much as we want to, have the idea in our head that we should come to here, that's way above our pay grade, right? So if we just come up like this, we sweep down like this, and then we break up here, well, we can look into a potential flip zone to then take this into the equals, and this may end up being our pullback phase. So you just have to remember that ultimately, we can have our ego set on ultimately this is the level that we're expecting to pull through. Bottom line is within trading or anything really, it's your ability to react to the new circumstances, right? So personally, I do have a pretty good feeling that we should be able to see these levels pull through. However, I will not be sitting here discrediting levels just below here. If we do liquidate this low and then end up breaking structure immediately after, I will then be looking to trade at what caused the actual break in swing structure, whatever it might be, and then basically trade into possibly expectational order flow highs, depending on how things frame up, right? So just want to be mindful of the fact that we don't really control any of these things. We just kind of watch what happens and react to the circumstances that are basically presented. So yeah, this is a short and sweet call. I'm going to obviously open up for some questions and stuff like that, but in terms of just kind of higher time frame narrative, I would say that I'm expecting this to kind of hopefully get taken out, and then we can start to look for some bigger criteria moving into, and you can just see, like, if this ends up playing out, it's reasonable to think that at the bare minimum we should be coming up into here. And if we do something like this and we just say, okay, well, ultimately this is the structural point, you can see just above these highs is obviously where liquidity sits. So the first area that I would be targeting, and again, this is counter trend against the higher time frame, but really, if everything sets up, there would be no reason to take profits before something like this, right? So there's a good bit of R sitting in here, and again, this is against higher time frame order flow. But bottom line is like we can trade against the higher time frame, and that's what our M15 model allows us to do. So yeah, I'm going to open up this. If you have a question, just throw a 2 in the comments. Ideally, keep them in relation to what we've talked about. Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, hey Tyson, could you go to the 15-minute time frame, please? I just have a question regarding to order flow.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when you have a break of structure and you see a 15-minute chart from the relevant POI, that's obviously a shift in order flow. But in this case, when you have a break of structure, price reacts to a relevant POI, but there is no 15M chart. So in this case, would you say like the order flow stayed the same, or would you say like it shifted to the upside because there was like a 1M chart?
So order flow can only shift in like, for us, the way that we view order flow at least is 15-minute and above. So yeah, because there's no real change of character that's happened here, I would say that the change of character would probably, like, we would have to assume, I don't know, probably this level right here, right, at the bare minimum. But I mean, ultimately, in order for this like to really shift, we would need to see this break, right?
Okay. So if we are looking to trade, let's say from here,
yeah,
sure. Whenever we are not sure, would you say it's much wiser to
anytime
with the counter order flow?
So anytime that we're leaving from, let's say, HTF demand and we're looking to take sells and, like, let's say this POI, I mean, the easiest way to go about this is to keep the conservative approach, right? Mm-hmm. and just trade this as if it's counter order flow, because we are leaving from demand, right? So order flow can only shift from a demand level, and it's typically always the way that the market moves. So if you want to just stay aligned with the counter order flow model, if we hit a refined, we can look for a 1-minute chalk and flip and then confirm on the seconds. Or on the flip side, if we just come into the larger, we'll call this like an M30 or whatever it is, and then we just look for the 15 to realign, that's fine too.
Okay. Got it. Yeah,
but so I mean, if there's a lesson to kind of be had here, the bottom line is, anybody who's paying attention to this right now, the bottom line with order flow is, if we're leaving from a higher time frame level, if you want to just by default assume that order flow has shifted and you're just going to be trading the sells as a counter order flow model, I don't think there's a better way to trade this. It is the more conservative approach, but it is the most reasonable way to sort of approach these trade setups.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, man. Mike, you got the floor.
Yeah, hey man. I was wondering if you could look at in terms of your the lower higher time frame POI that you had marked out from the weekly and daily time frame. I was wondering if you could go back to the area where you marked it out from and look on the 2 hour. There's an area that it's not as deep as the one you have marked out. It's rests just above, a little bit more to the right, please. A little bit more to the right.
A little bit more to the right. Oh, this guy.
Yeah, yeah. It also kind of swept and led to a break of structure. And we've just tapped in. That's where the week low currently tapped into. But I didn't know if you thought maybe price could sweep that low and there could be reactions still from this area, or if you'd still be looking for the lower demand that you marked on.
2 seconds here. Yeah, I would think we let's go like this. Okay, so okay, so let's look at this. I mean, we can't like argue that it's reacting to it, right? But the bottom line is if you were to just snap this across like this, right, which is kind of like our swing.
Yeah.
Like I don't classify that as a break, right? So ultimately, because we've pushed up into here, could not close above, immediately came back down into the range. I'm assuming that these lows will still be weak. Now, in the case that we would have broken above and closed above and then came back down, I would be looking at something in here to then take this into the deeper sections of this, right? But yeah, to answer your question simply, I still think these are weak based on the delivery away from it, right?
Okay. And in terms of just looking for demand areas, because I found that area last week and I didn't ask about it, but is that a valid area for me to look at? Like say
for sure, because it's sitting underneath the EOF low, and it's somewhere. All you have to remember is that we're going to react to unmitigated demand, right?
Yeah,
that's going to be our pullback. So if you caught that, like I said, I think the bigger pullback will come from the deeper portion of this once we liquidate the lows, and that'll start coming into like more of like the daily leg, because now we'll have closed below, because we have not closed below the daily structure point, right?
correct.
So I think that like, is there R to be made here? Of course, right? Did we expect this to happen? To be honest with you, I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought we were just going to plummet through and then see that larger pullback. So now we've just created more liquidity for that move, right?
Gotcha. Cool. And then I actually have one more question real quick, please, on the, could you go to the 15-minute time frame on current price?
Yeah. Give me a sec. I'm just going to zoom in.
Awesome. Thanks, man. So looking at it, so right now, would you consider that this is sort of the entire supply range, which led to the new low?
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
yeah. So, and again, this is just kind of like mashing together timeframes, right? But ultimately, like we're coming into the range to mitigate, and then we can start looking at refinements. So like there's a flip zone that happened in here, right?
yeah.
But yeah, like anytime you see so this is just the higher time frame order flow. That's all this is, right? So if you look at this, this is supply, right? Came in to mitigate supply, broken out, order flow just stays aligned, right? So as long as we don't break this high, order flow doesn't shift on the higher time frame, right?
Right. And so because we're in that higher time frame supply zone here, say the M15 comes up a little bit more, doesn't necessarily meet the extreme or refined zone, but the M15 we do get like a sweep and a realignment. Could we then trade from that area?
Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah. So typically what I like to do is like, this is how I'm going to use. So this entire range is supply. We can't dispute, because ultimately pullbacks break, like that's proving that there's obviously a surplus of supply, right?
Right.
So the way that I look at this is, ultimately we've got this push down, right? We've got this push up. This is the area that swept, right? This little area. So that is basically where I would refine my supply down to, would be something like this. And then furthermore, I could then look at refinements within this entire zone. But this is the entire push up that created supply that broke structure.
Okay. So in this case, you like looking at the push part rather than just the entire supply range.
It's good to look at both. It's good to understand both, right? Because I mean, ultimately anything can happen in here, but the area that I would really get interested in would be obviously this upper region, right? This is that last push through. And then if you were to use your premium and discount, you could start to look at obviously we're not in it yet. And personally, like, not to say that I wouldn't take trades, but ultimately the highest quality trades are going to come from this upper area, right?
For sure.
Cool.
For sure. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, bro.
You're welcome. Jitesh. Jitesh, do you have a question, brother? All right. Anybody else have questions? Short and sweet, man. The narrative tomorrow will inevitably shift depending on how the market sort of reveals itself on the market open. And yeah, man, we're just going to adapt, and that's all we do. And ultimately, we just want to be able to have basically all of our grounds covered. And what I mean by that is just be able to say, okay, well, what are the highest probability scenarios that we could expect getting into sort of like this week, right? And when you start to understand where these higher time frame intention moves come from, man, it becomes very, very easy to just focus on one or two really, really high probability pro trend, pro order flow moves. They're available every week, right? And like, I think everybody's starting to, come to terms with that. And sometimes it's tough to sit on your hands, moving through, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then all of a sudden Thursday, bang, 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 there's 3 setups that are available. This is the way that it works, right? We can't really control when these setups happen. We just need to be prepared for them and adapt to the market as it essentially shows its hands, right? So yeah, like I said, for right now, I think, looking for, excuse me, sells coming off of this region, obviously leaving from a demand zone. We could obviously assume that order flow is shifted, even though we haven't really chalked or anything like that. We're just assuming that the money is flowing this way up until it's not, right? And that's all it really boils down to. If you are reacting to something that you feel is threatening, just assume that it's counter order flow is the best way to sort of approach it. Sometimes it means you might miss out on trades because you're looking for 15 minutes to realign and it just takes off without you. But the conservative approach is always the best approach. Less trades is more. And then ultimately you could look at your pro order flow model to see if you could have got into this and what the differences are between the two, right? So I'm a little bit more aggressive when it comes to, especially if we don't see like an M15 chalk bullish. But like, again, this is to each their own. And the beauty for you guys is that, like, ultimately you have your notebook or your workbook to be able to go back in hindsight and just say, okay, like, ultimately, if I would have treated this as a pro order flow move, technically I would have been able to get in here. And yeah, it's just about training your eye too, right? So yeah, anyways, I hope this was helpful, guys. We can only, we can't predict the market. We can only, put ourselves in a position to kind of decipher the higher probability areas that we should see reactions from. And right now, I think that the reasonable areas would be if and when we, liquidate the low and then follow through with some sort of aggression, we could then look at probably some sort of flip zone in here to then be able to take this into some higher pricing. And if not, and we end up just, excuse me, melting off from this POI, we could also look for some form of trade within here and then taking this into expectational order flow lows, being mindful of the fact that obviously this would be the week low. You want to take a good bit of your profit off here with the potential for a V-shaped recovery that would happen, right? Otherwise, yeah, sit tight and just kind of let the higher time frame do its thing. If you didn't capitalize on trades last week, the important part, getting into Sundays especially, is doing your week in review, making sure that you understand the high probability setups that we've sort of talked about. Within this region, we took trades here. There were trades available here. There were trades available that we took sells in here based on the fact that we were expecting this to be induced and then taking out the lows. So, you know what I mean? It just make sure that you're going back and just making sure that you are aligned with the rules, not so much with the market. Ultimately, we needed to see this level break to basically get us into a pro order flow state, or a pro structure state rather. And yeah, so there's a few moves here. Great move here. And there was nothing up here for us, which is fine, right? We don't need to guess the market top. What we need to do is get aligned with order flow, and order flow aligned for us right here. It's going to happen time and time again. Wait for the highest probability setups. Any questions to finish this off? All good, all good. All right, guys. Cool. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Lucas, Mike, all you guys. Cool, man. Catch you guys tomorrow morning, bright and early. And yeah, have a good rest of your Sunday. Don't forget to today's the grind day. Get back acquainted with the charts and shit like that. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and looking forward to the week ahead.